Let's talk about framed photographs of African American, black men and boys emanating a sense of joy. What does it mean to see these marvelous photos? Kids, older heads, kids being held by older heads, by dads, kids swinging, background hazy. We don't know where they are except in Eatonville, Zora Neale Hurston's historical home. Then you see the great, powerful images of urban black folks. I love the one where the guy's just standing next to his big old car. He's just driven down from Chicago to Alabama or Mississippi. Or he was my dad just driving down from D.C. to Virginia to say, hey, things are going well. We're working hard. So that's what this project, that's what these images stand for. History, living history. Now excavated history. The history of deep personal dignity, intimate celebration at a given moment in time. You know, people who were living their lives but who are now ancestors. And we get to honor them as we watch these beautiful photos scroll through.
Welcome everyone. My name is Helen Cate. I work at the Altadena Library and I'm the research librarian for the Peter J. Harris's CU Emanating a Sense of Joy campaign and publication. I am elated to have Peter J. Harris here, writer and cultural worker. How are you, Peter?
I'm fine. I'm glad to participate.
Thank you. Peter J. Harris is the 2018 City of Los Angeles Fellow in Literary Arts. He is the Fellow of the Los Angeles Institute for the Humanities at USC, an award-winning poet. He is the author of Bless the Ashes, winner of the 2015 Penn Oakland Josephine Miles Award, and author of The Black Man of Happiness, In Pursuit of My Unalienable Right, a book of personal essays, and winner of a 2015 American Book Award. And not only that, he is an Altadena Library patron.
I certainly am.
Most importantly.
Certainly am. I love the Altadena Library.
And you are the founding director of the Black Man of Happiness Project, a creative, intellectual, and artistic exploration of black men and joy. Harris writes the blog Wreaking Happiness, a joyful living journal.
Yes, I do.
Found at www.inspirationcrib.com.
Right, that's right.
Thank you for being here, Peter.
I'm glad to be here, Helen, and you know, for a lot of reasons. I've been here to research, to listen. This library, this is what we're talking about, and you know I've said it before. This is a local library success story. This is a local library success story, and I hope we can share some more details so that people understand that the work we're talking about, it just was given a rocket boost by yourself, by Melissa Aldama, coming here during a difficult time in my own personal life when I had gone through some challenges economically and ended up living in Altadena after living in LA for 15 or so years. The library has turned out to be a marvelous, marvelous home in Briar Patch.
I love that, Peter.
Absolutely.
I love that. So I want to talk about the origins of the Black Man of Happiness Project. And can you talk about the significance of the question, what is a happy black man?
Well, that question is what sparked me. Because when it came roaring into my imagination, I was actually not very happy. I was going through some personal challenges that even predate the one I just mentioned, this idea of having to move out of a home. But in the midst of that crisis, I started to ask myself, well, gee, bro, when are you going to ever be happy? You know, and then it just sort of kept cascading and pulsating, and eventually it landed on what is a happy black man? And I asked myself that question, like, you know, it was like a mantra for a minute. And I just said,
Mm-hmm.
what the heck? Was my dad happy? Is my son happy? Is the young man I helped also raise, my second son, is he happy? Are my friends and my brothers happy? And it just sort of just became this marvelous moment of aha and what ifs, and so somewhere in there, as often happens when this kind of stuff happens, I began working on a poem.
Right.
The poem ends up in Bless the Ashes, the book Tiachucha Press published. And in these, what I'm really trying to say is happiness for me includes embracing the difficulty, acknowledging the difficulty. I call myself a recovering brooder. In other words, in my youth, if stuff hit the fan, and I would growl and grit my teeth on it. I still have those tendencies. But fundamentally now what I say is, bruh, acknowledge the difficulty, find language for the difficulty, speak on it,
Mm-hmm.
and then if it really starts hounding me and haunting me like what is a happy black man did, then write on it, research on it, study on it,
Right.
or as I like
Right.
to say, put some water on it, saturate it, let it get supple, don't let it calcify. And so that's a lot of what is a happy black man, just what jolted me into action, jump started me, ignited me.
Right.
Yeah. That's how I would come at it.
Wow. Thank you, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about sort of like the intentionality behind your work
Yes.
and what it means
Yes.
today in
Yes.
2021?
Wow, that's right, man. Well, as I said, I always start here. The basic intention is for me to find my own happiness, my own equilibrium, my own homeostasis. This is the absolute truth of the way I approach it. I want to be able to wake up in the morning and say, bro, let's go. Let's go. Take that inhale, regardless of the weather, what's in the bank account, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to say, are you here?
Oof.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Are you ready for what you have planned? And also, are you ready for what you don't have planned? And we can connect that to even our working relationship, the importance of the library. When I moved up here,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew Altadena, I knew folks who lived here, I didn't have a sort of dedicated Wi-Fi. I was literally coming out of a crisis. And so the woman I'm renting from, she says, Peter, the Altadena Library, I love it. You gotta go get a library card. You gotta participate and see what's happening. And sure enough, I start coming here because
Yes.
I was on Wi-Fi. I learned about all the great services you guys
Yes.
have. And I started to sort of get introduced to each of you all, just checking out books, checking out DVDs. Now, if I had have had Wi-Fi dedicated in my living space, I'm 100% sure I would not have come to the Altadena Library to begin to just get in the rhythm of the place.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I would have been home doing my own research.
Absolutely.
I would have been home
Yes.
writing. So I really want to emphasize, yes, wake up. I'm ready for the plan. I'm also ready for the X factor. So that's how I start to answer your question. The bigger thing is, all right, we've just come through, and we're still going to deal with the reverberations of the MAGA world and the outgoing president. Difficult, ugly time, dangerous time, a time of dislocation, dysfunction, mediocrity, even, despite the grandiose language.
Absolutely.
So for me, to be able, and then we want to make sure people know how absolutely essential you have been to this project. For me, as we began to frame the project, frame the research, and you came up with that wonderful turn of phrase, emanating a sense of joy. It just sort of says, whoa, one, that lands us right in the center of something beautiful.
Yes.
Secondly, it frames it in a way of excellence, in a way. As we talked and got to know each other,
Yes.
I said, because I kept saying, Helen, Melissa, I want pictures of dudes that look happy, that smile. And that wasn't singing. It wasn't singing. And until you said in your first email on my behalf to Library of Congress, elsewhere, my patron is looking for photos of black men and boys emanating a sense of joy.
Yeah.
That's when it's like, if you can see a big old vision of, gears clicking.
Yes.
That's when it all just says, shut up, boom.
Yep.
It just
yep.
locks in.
Yep.
And then from there, the conversations and our meetings would get even richer and deeper. And we would say, well, wait a minute, what are you really, and I'd say, well, what are you looking at? What are you looking for?
Right.
Maybe you should answer that. As you started going into those archives, emanating a sense of joy, you were our frontliner at that point.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, I ask you this all the time,
Yes.
how did a picture seize you and say, you gotta have me and you gotta show me the people?
Right. Well, it was a really interesting process, and my strategy began with the traditional scientific, let me formulate my search strategy and get my search concepts, and just searching for happy African American men, boys, smiling, yielded very few results.
Okay.
So then I had to relook and sort of scaffold and then go into the collections which had photos of African American men from 1860 to 1940.
Wow.
And then go through, because of the metadata,
I love it when you talk library.
metadata, all the descriptive elements that allow us to find these records.
Yes.
They're so impersonal and objective, and they don't capture these nuanced expressions and emanations. They
Yes.
just don't. So then it became more of an emotional attunement to the photos, going through thousands of photos.
Yes, you did.
One by one.
And not all of them about happiness either. I know we talked about that.
The majority were harrowing and horrific, and the few that I did identify.
No, the more than 100 that you.
The few, yes, more than 100. Yeah, just really resonated, and I felt a sense of connection and an emotional stirring.
Yes.
So it was really also, it was kind of a scientific but also emotional practice, finding these images and then getting your feedback, and we created our own feedback loop of what you felt really resonated with you.
Yeah, and we were right there on almost every photograph. I mean, look, here's one right here.
Yes.
I mean, look, this picture of these guys in New York. This is in the 30s, 1930s. And it just leaps. It just leaps. And of course, it's going to go on the cover of, this is our proof of concept publication, See You Emanating a Sense of Joy. So that framing device, which I just get thrilled every time I say it. But in terms of the intentionality.
Right.
Well, so now we're past, so you just shared your personal, what moved you personally. So now we say, okay, well, what are the other kind of optics? Well, there's our optics. There's the younger colleague and the old head. There's the blonde colleague and the high yellow African American colleague. There's the librarian who's a MF, a meowster. You make me laugh when you say, but you're a master in library science. You're a master in library science. I'm a master writer. I'm a master cultural worker. I know this. It's not an ego issue. It's just a matter of what you put your time in. And so now we come away also saying, what do we want to present to the world?
Right.
Especially during ugly times. Well, we want to present beauty to the world. Now, so let's make sure we stay as loose but rigorous as I am. So when I say I want to put beauty in the world, I was literally inspired by an Earth, Wind, and Fire song. Where he says, Maurice White, rest in peace, brother, at one of the end of his songs, it's called All About Love, he's talking, the music's swelling, the guys are in the back, the sisters in the back, I think, at that point, singing, oh, and he says, you know, if it ain't no beauty in the world, you gotta make some beauty. That, I heard that, I'm getting a chill all of these years later. I heard that in the 1970s. 1974, I think I heard that tune. And I remember him saying that, and I remember how it just blossomed inside of me. And I remember my mother used to say, we lived in an apartment complex in D.C., and paper, maybe some paper would be on the floor, or a wrapper for a bag of potato chips or whatnot. And she'd say, Peter, she's up in the third floor window, I'm down playing baseball, catching. And she'd say, Peter, what is that thing by your feet? I said, I don't know, oh, it looks like a potato chip bag, Mom. She'd say, well, clean it up, grab it and put it in the trash. And I'd say, well, why do I have to pick it up? I didn't put it down there. And she said, well, you live here, don't you? What?
Oh.
Check and mate.
Check and mate, Peter.
Moral checkmate, ethical checkmate. And of course, she was, of course, my mother. I wasn't going to get but one or two other opportunities to say, I'm not picking it up, which is what I was trying to say. But absolutely, things like that mesh for me.
Right.
They mesh for me. One of the things we talked about as we continued this research is, well, we want excellence, we want dignity, but we don't want celebrity.
No.
I asked you up front, I asked Melissa up front, I don't want the athletes. I don't want the Duke Ellingtons and the famous people. I want what Sly Stone called everyday people. And I want to show I want to embody in these historical photos the living, breathing history. These were real people. We may not know everything about them. We do, because you're an expert researcher. We have all the citations. We make sure whenever we put a photo in the book or up on the website or on Instagram or on Facebook, we always have the citation. So we're doing the work. But I don't know who these men and these boys are. And I am okay with the anonymity, because their anonymity does not devalue what they have experienced as real human beings. Look, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 men. Now, 30s, different time frame. Everybody's got a tie on. Everybody's dressed. This is how you went out into the world in those days.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's no sagging pants. There's none of that. These guys work hard. Yet in the 30s, that's right in the Depression. So we don't know what their literal experiences were, their economic circumstances were. But here they are. Perhaps that's a brand new radio that the store owner was able to get, so that, or maybe that's Joe Louis a fight, or that, you know what I mean? Anything.
Right.
This is what we get the freedom to do. So my intention also is to unleash story.
Ah, okay.
The stories that move me. The story, and when we finally get to the ideal approach to this book, we want to have a section that includes a crowdsourced. So we'll get folks to send their own family pictures in with their own captions. Now in the proof of concept, I did a version with my own dad. So there's my daddy and my mom. You know what I mean? And anyway, we're
so powerful.
So I hope that answers some of that. But yes, and I want it to feel like it emanates. There's no linear one answer to your questions. Yeah. But these are sort of core answers. These are sort of rigor. This is the rigor at the heart of this work. It's inspirational.
Yes.
It's like uplifting and all of that, but it's also a well-framed research experience.
Right.
Between two professionals who know what they're doing. So that's exciting. And I want it to feel exciting, even as we can also track.
Absolutely. And I was really moved by just how positively subversive
Oh, okay.
your work is.
Say, what does that mean? I like that, but
I mean, it's subversive because you're challenging this narrow narrative.
Mhm.
And what also got me really interested was when you told me that you had gone to other libraries
Yes.
and they told you a happy black man, that's an oxymoron.
Yes.
We can't
Yes.
help you.
yes, or not getting inspired enough to begin the excavation,
Yes.
which is the same as we can't help you.
Right. Basically, we're not going to bother looking. And so that, I just thought it was like we are challenging this narrative that so many people hold.
Yes.
And that really inspired me.
Yes, I do appreciate that. You know, and I'll make sure, so I've told you before, but I want to say it to whoever's listening. So my mother, June Harris is her name, passed away many years ago, really young. I'm older than she is. I'm older now than she was when she passed, so it's a deep thing. But my mother, everywhere we went, I had to have a library card.
I love
mean,
that.
really, and you know, if I can pull them out like they're deck cards now. So I got
Yes.
But I think what she was, in fact, here's a story too. It's linked. Many years ago, my brother, my sort of youngest older brother, out of the blue called me at work one day, and he said, "Pete," that's what he calls me. Nobody else can call me Pete. He said, "Pete, wouldn't Ma love the internet?" And what he really meant was she'd love to read, to write, to explore, to know, to grow, and to pass on to her children
Right.
that hunger. All of us are not writers in my family. Or, in fact, I'm sort of the ghost keeper in my family. I'm the middle child. I wish I'd have done a better job. I wish I had my mother on film or my father on film. I mean, like really, like talking and whatnot. So I didn't quite live up to that role. But I think and I love what you just said, is positive subversive. Yes, I have been thinking since that moment when I said, what is a happy black man? That the most important sort of community engagement step to take was to find historical photos first.
Yes.
So literally I'm a contemporary art maker. So I can pick up the phone to a few people who are like National Book Award winners. I'm not boasting, I'm simply saying that's the experience that my life has afforded.
Right.
You know, MacArthur winners, people who are, you know, famous in the literary and cultural sphere. But in some cases we're buddies because we knew each other when we were kids, when we were young, when we were scratching out a poem, or when we'd get on the phone, or we'd send each other the poem. But in addition to that, I have my own sort of vision. And I also, as a result of being in the world, know, as you said, when I say black man of happiness, it doesn't compute for people too often. Whereas I knew all I need is the right teammate or teammates. And I need the resources to invite the teammate in. Now, how deep? And I really do want to make sure this library understands how grateful I am to this blossoming. So here you guys are, a local library. And I come enough, I see people who are, for all I know, homeless. I see people come in who are, you know, have developmental disabilities. Of course, children on up to seniors. I see an intercultural experience. I've been here for music events. I've sat out in the parking lot and watched Star Wars. I've you know, literally just sat in the beautiful grounds and just rest. I've come to one of your classes.
Mindful Meow.
Your Mindful Meow. And the point I'm making, and really, seriously, and then as I observed you, and I think I observed Melissa first. And Melissa was so thorough all the time with whoever asked her a question. I was in awe. I'd be back there writing on, you know, and I'd see her, well, let me show you blah, blah, blah. And when I finally sort of ginned up the courage to approach her, I said to her, look, I got this project. I've been really trying to find these photos, and I wonder if I could meet with you and just talk to you. She said, well, blah, blah, blah. She asked me questions. I said, yeah, so black men, joy, happiness. I'm writing, I'm doing this, but I really want to do this research part where I really want to excavate these photos. I mean, you talk about emanating. So as a professional researcher in library, she just kind of like glowed. She was like, she didn't say bruh, but I'm going to say it. She said, bruh, I live for requests like this. And she says, let me just coordinate. So we set up a meeting. I know I'm talking a lot, but
no,
I want
to
answer your question with the dimensions of my feelings about this.
Yes, please.
And so we scheduled a meeting with me, her, and you.
Yes.
She says, okay, I'm gonna frame this. She said, but I think I'm gonna assign Helen Cate to this. And so we got the meeting, and y'all just let me ramble. I brought a copy of the essays.
Mm-hmm.
I gave them y'all. I said, look, just to let you know, I'm not fly by night. I've been doing this a long time. But I failed. I have failed to activate people who can help me find these photos. And sure enough, y'all just took notes. And yes, Peter. I was all hyped. We were in the office. And yes. I think almost, so when we finally dapped and I left, I think you must have started writing your email like that evening.
Yes.
Because the very next day, there was the email in which you had coined the emanating a sense of joy. So I think it's important. I mean, as a worker myself, I think I want to make sure I honor the work and the worker. I want to honor Melissa. And I want to honor my LA Public Library colleague, a guy named Yago Cura.
Yes.
Just weeks almost before I met you guys,
yeah.
Yago found a few photos in the LA Public Library's
yes.
archives. And we haven't really incorporated them fully into everything we're doing yet. So anyway, I celebrate the hard work of conception. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I get excited. I really get excited about this kind of stuff.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Yes.
Yeah, and we care deeply about our patrons and the Altadena community, and we're just here to listen and make sure your information need is met, and we take it seriously. And
yeah, you did.
You did.
And you do.
Yes.
Yes. Because I think it's important for people to know. Yeah, so this proof of concept will have about 15 historical photos that I extracted from the extractions that you did. But you found over 100 photos.
Yes.
Including a few celebrities, because you didn't quite know who the folks were. And I looked at, and then there are a couple. I got to say this to the library folks. This woman found a picture of Langston Hughes sitting with Wallace Thurman. Now this is like Harlem Renaissance stuff.
Yeah.
They're just sitting there with it's like they're at a retreat or something. Now I don't even want to use it because Langston is so quote unquote famous, and Barry is not so famous. Wallace Thurman is not so famous. Although he has a solid, Huntington has some of his papers out here. Anyway, so I'll go down the rabbit hole with you. I'm not a scholar, but I have tendencies.
Oh, yes, Peter.
Anyway, I hope that gives you and whoever's listening a sense that, if the project doesn't make me happy, why do it?
Right.
So I'm not distanced from this.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Okay.
That makes sense.
Any other thoughts and questions you have for me?
Yeah, I do.
I can ramble. I'll ramble.
Yes, please. What do you think? I like how you framed this work as a humanizing tool. Could you talk more about that?
Well, so for me, there are many tools for human rights work. Many tools, many strategies, many ways to bring people together to fight, hash it out. There's stuff where you get in the street and you stop the flow of traffic. There's stuff where you stand in front of armed guards, fight back against armed anti, sort of Trump type folks. That's our most recent vibe.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, but the wiser I get in my life, and the more experiences I have collaborating and reaching across various borders and various boundaries, I realize that what's most important for me is to find what I would call inspirational tools.
Ah, okay.
And also, there's nothing fancy about it. Just really dynamic listening is the start. You know what I mean? Just like you described you and Melissa in our meeting. I'm just listening, bro. I'm just taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but when you're listening in a dynamic way, you're not only hearing what's spoken, you're hearing the overtones, the undertones, the reverberations. It becomes a 360-degree experience that becomes visceral and sensational. So I think listening is a dynamic tool. I think happiness is one.
Yeah.
In other words, so we can be in say a community meeting, and we could be disagreeing. We could be finding that we don't want to work with X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
But let's say we finally figure out as a group in the room, we want to keep the library open. You know what I mean? And so we say, well, how do we do that? Well, what's going to make me happy is it needs the kind of financial and other resources so that you guys can keep your jobs, for example, and really be available. For some other person, that may mean I want to go on the board. I want to be on the advisory board. For another person, it may mean writing letters to the various political level. So our goal is to save the library, but I'm doing it in a way that makes me happy. Somebody else does it in a way that makes them happy. But we've agreed on the goal and the outcomes we want to see.
Okay.
So I think, again, I do celebrate libraries. So I want to, in fact, as far as I'm concerned, as we get into deeper discussions about whether police departments should be defunded or should be more democratically a recipient of allocations of public funds, I certainly stand with libraries. Because, why should the sort of military part of our life get way more money than the great civilian headquarters that the libraries represent? So I think that what I'm really going for with the CU project and campaign and the Black Men of Happiness project is just to simply say, we're in the world together. And if we're going to be ethical collaborators, I think that African American, Black American, historically Africana type human beings have taken the brunt of the ugliness, the endemic ugliness of the society. So for me, you can't replace history, you simply absorb it and you simply learn from it. And so I'm saying, for me, I want to see my joy and the joy of my sons and the joy. Now, it's not an anti-woman energy at all. Let's make sure people know that. This is just my doorway into community salvation, community sanity, community mental health. I am a dude, so I care about, I have the right to care about my wholeness.
Absolutely.
And as a person who came of age in the 70s, learned from many a magical womanist and feminist teacher, it's just my way of being whole in the conversation with women as they are in wholeness with themselves, with gay and lesbian folks and trans folks. To me, everybody has a right to the whole humanity. So there's sort of ebb and flow. Right now, we are benefiting as a society from the particular genius and sort of powerful organizational use of all these tools of African American women. And so we're all going to benefit from that, because if we can really more democratically allocate the trillions of dollars in the U.S. budget, then we will all benefit in a way that, but it's cool. We benefited because it's a society. Right now, we needed
Right.
their particular cultural genius, as somebody like Karenga would say. But anyway, so those are some thoughts I have about what I mean by these tools. I think happiness, imagination,
Right.
creativity, they are absolutely indispensable. And guess what? Back to that library meeting. Well, suppose we were in the churches in the 60s, and suppose the founder, the woman who would go on to found Sweet Honey in the Rock, Bernice Johnson Reagan, was in the audience. And all of a sudden, it just felt like we couldn't think together one more second. And here she comes, starts to hum. You know, maybe it's Amazing Grace. That's an easy one because that's probably the only one I can remember and sing. But think of how powerful song has been to struggle. You know.
Absolutely.
You know.
Oh my goodness.
And so that's why I say, yeah, these tools. And I'm not a conspiracist, so to me, it's just that at different times, different people bring different gifts to the conversation. I like to think that the idea that we can use historical pictures of black men and boys emanating a sense of joy, I like to think that that's a gift I can bring to the conversation.
Absolutely. I 100%
Yeah.
agree, and it's so powerful, and it's just filled with so much humanity and wholeness, and I feel so inspired sitting here with you talking
And
about
vice
it.
versa, yeah. I think people should really understand that this is a conversation. So we've taken a moment to stop and craft a program out of the conversation. But one of the great things I do want to tell people is that, you know, I have been working on African and African American cultural studies in my own way since I was a 20-some-year-old guy. I ain't 20 no more. I got the same energy as I did when I was in my 20s. And I know that there are moments when things just kind of, you know, I think we talked about Malcolm Gladwell, I think me and you did. I mean, that whole idea of a tipping point and other things. You know, I don't know whether this work will contribute to any tipping points. I truly don't. Because I just know that the work needs to be done, and I need to do it.
Yes.
In the way I do it. It doesn't say that other people shouldn't do it. In fact, since I started the project in 2010, and I outlined that in the book, you know, Black joy is an ascendant sort of concept.
Right.
Black, you know, hashtag this joy. I mean, after Mr. Floyd was unceremoniously suffocated back by the officer in Minnesota, Representative Ayanna Pressley from Boston, you know, went on Twitter and said, Lord have mercy, can we just see some photographs of images of boys and men? Black joy is resistance, this, that, and the other. And she got critiqued by some Twitter followers, but the overwhelming majority of folks just sort of inhaled what she asked, and boy, the thread just wound through the world.
Right.
It was incredible.
Yep.
We're hungry,
Mm-hmm.
I think, as a species. Listen, and we know, I've talked with you enough, and I'll say it for the record, this is not happy-go-lucky.
No.
And for me, that's like a minstrel show. And what that means to me is you're hiding, you're masking, you're saying, at the worst, it's just, namaste, everything is everything. It's going to be perfect, everything is perfect. Well, maybe so. I'm not I'm saying, yes, there are people in Yemen, there are people in South America, there are people in jails in our country. Kids split from their mothers and their fathers. There are people who come into this library who are in dire straits. And so I don't fake that the world is perfect. It's not. But so if I get, though, this sort of ecstatic insight that we have to celebrate life, then it doesn't mean I can personally wave a wand and help that person. But if the institution is still alive, when that person comes in, who knows what information he or she finds on those computers? What person, I
Right.
got my health care. I went to a thing here where a person helped me navigate the healthcare system.
It's wonderful, Peter.
So I'm saying,
Yes.
so that's what I mean. This is about happiness, and I mean that in the sense of Thomas Jefferson, who owned 600 people in his life. But if he could write that pursuing happiness was an unalienable right in the Declaration of Independence, well, certainly the people who are descendants of folks he owned have way more claim on that unalienable right.
I couldn't agree more.
So that's how I couch all of this.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
yes.
I feel so moved. This was so powerful.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing
I'm happy to
your
participate.
wisdom and your
Yes.
beautiful words and
Yeah.
your work.
Yes,
And
thank
I'm-
you for being a part of it. A critical, essential, indispensable part of it. We've made beauty together. Yeah, and let's make some more, is the way I look at it.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you came back to the Altadena Library
Absolutely.
to share this with the community.
Yes, oh man.
About over 3 years later
That's right.
from when you first came
That's
to the
right.
library.
We started in 2018.
2017.
Oh
we
my
first
God,
met in
that's
the library.
right. That's right. That's right.
2018 we moved outside the library
Wow,
and
that's right. Yeah,
started our contractual work and
that's right. Yeah, it's
kept
amazing.
it moving.
Yeah, yeah. So this is to me local library success story.
Woo! Yes, it is, Peter. Yes, it
Absolutely.
is.
Local library success story, right here.
Thank you so much, Peter.
It's my pleasure.
And thank you for watching.
Yeah, yeah. All three of you.
Oh.